the central plains, river plains of Myanmar are dominated by the Burma or the Burmese as an ethnic group, and they make up 60% or even more than 60% of the total population, and they control all of the riverine networks and most of the food production in the country, and it's always been thus. But on the coastal side, there's a small mountain range on this coastal side in the west. And there you find on the other side what you call the Arakan. The idea that they're rebels against the central government and that they've been fighting the central government because of domination and cruelty and so forth and so on is another farcical narrative. The reality is that the Arakans have been fighting the Manipuris, which is just above present-day Bangladesh and the Indian border, and also the Bangladeshis, and they have been fighting Muslim advances into their territory for more than 400 years, right through the colonial period, before the colonial period. This is not new. And what they're interested in is stopping Muslim incursions and waves of Muslims to upset their Buddhist sovereignty. So this is another fallacy. And then, of course, in the mountain ranges, the north and the northeast, the northwest, all mountains, and then also down to the border with to Laos and Thailand, mountainous. And so all of the groups, the ethnic groups that live in those places, they've always lived in relatively sort of peace and harmony because they're in the mountains. But what they control are the little trade routes across the borders and into the main Burmese heartland for trade, where they get all their food, or most of their food, and where most of their goods and services came and have always come. Now, in return, they've had the riches of their jade and gold and other things, timber and so forth. Those ethnic groups mostly, this warlord kind of idea, and mostly are trying to control their ethnic group and their ethnic area and the trade routes there. And that's all they're really trying to do. And you can see that in the fact that this has been going on forever, even when it's been funded, enormously funded, by the Americans and by the Europeans and by the Japanese and by the Taiwanese. Now, the Taiwanese have been involved there because there was an entire nationalist army that couldn't go back to Taiwan, and it went into Myanmar, and it eventually became the largest drug-running organization in the world. And the remnants of that still exist and still operate drugs in the mountains of Myanmar. So this idea that they're all fighting against the central government is only true in the sense that the central government wants to keep the trade routes running open to all of them. This is true. Now, I'm not saying that the central government and the military dictatorship is peace-loving and gentle and benevolent, although when it comes to their own people in Burmese, they mostly are. So now that US Aid and the NED, other organizations, evangelical churches, and where do they get their funds from? The United States, from their Bible Belt. Now, I'm not saying that they're not doing some good. They have been. Medical, health, education, but next to that is drugs and guns. Now, the recent raids for scam activities on the Myanmar border by Thailand, you will also find that that is timed very nicely to also ensure that there is a block, if you like, for the drugs and gun trade. Very much the Iran-Contra idea. Now, Cambodia, Hun Sen, President of the Senate, Thaksin Shinawatra in Thailand, and his daughter, the current Prime Minister, who is currently under a limited threat from the opposition, funded, of course, externally, and Anwar Ibrahim in Malaysia. The three of them have been working very closely together to get a resolution for Myanmar and to be able to get elections in place. And meanwhile, in the north of Myanmar, India has been very, very relaxed and kept that border under control. Likewise, the Chinese frontier, also the Chinese have ensured that that is also calmed down enormously. So there may be an opportunity here without an extra regional power being involved. Now, I know it's going to be very hard to actually guarantee that, but whether Trump is willing to do that, I'm not sure. But if you've seen my recent video on the fragmentation of Europe, you can see what the policy of the United States and Europe is, or has been, in terms of ASEAN. And that is to fragment ASEAN, to break up the bloc, or to make it so unworkable, that they can then exercise more power and more influence, and under the guise of democracy and liberty and all that sort of thing, I think you're going to find that that recent activity by the three Gulf of Thailand powers to try and stabilize Myanmar. And that's what it is, stabilization. Because remember, it's the US that is the great instability in the world today.